Oh, hey there. Hey guys, it's Mike Hall, Jay Hancock, and we're back for another week of
Real Talk with Real Producers.
Yeah, that's nice. Today we're going to talk about something that a lot of people have felt. I mean, we live in a world where I compare it to, you know, our grandparents who always had that in the back of their brain of not trusting banks, not trusting the stock market because they went through the Great Depression, right? What we went through was the Great Housing Recession. So it's something that we're always going to have in the back of our brain. We're always going to have this kind of, we're always, even no matter how good we feel about it, we're always going to be a little bit uneasy about our real estate purchases because we saw a market where the bottom fell out of real estate. Mm-hmm. And that is really unique, and it's something that we're going to have to deal with for the rest of our lives, right? And we're probably going to have to deal with the aftermath of transferring that onto our children because we lived through that.
Yeah.
That being said, it's also an incredible opportunity to learn from it, right? Because we had the opportunity to live through that and to actually buy and sell real estate through that. See the people who did well, see the people that scraped by and made it work, and we saw the people that got it completely annihilated, right? Mm-hmm. So how can we use that information in the future?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I guess we'll kind of jump right into it because coming out of the Great Housing Recession, you know, I would say the bottom fell out, and I mean really fell out in the fall of 2007 is what everybody talks about. However, 2008 and 9 and 10 prices still continued to plummet through those years as well. I remember even Samantha and I, when we bought our first house, we were searching 2009 time frame, and I kid you not, every house we went into, contrary to most people's belief, was multiple offers.
Yeah.
We were looking in that entry-level price point, $170,000 budget. Right now, I can't even process that for a single-family home.
Right. Well, you can. It's just
you got to go way the heck.
45 minutes.
You got to go way the heck out there. But I mean, that was our budget at the time. I mean, that's what we could afford. And I remember the payment, like it was yesterday, was $1,100 a month. And that was realistic for us at that time. But every single house we went into, by the time we got there was 4, 5, 6 offers on it.
Yep.
And it took us going further out to eventually get a house that fit within our budget.
Right.
So, I mean, you talk about the bottom falling out in 07, everybody talks about 07, 08, but, I mean, that continued on all the way until 2011 when the bottom was actually hit.
Right.
Like, that's when everything was the cheapest that it had ever been, and we haven't seen prices like that again.
Right. And we probably never will, right?
Right.
So, we got into actively selling real estate. Sam, what was it, 2011?
She got her license in 2011. I remember her very first sale vividly. It was a couple she met at an open house, and they had a $220,000 budget, which was a good budget then. Right. I remember the house that they bought, and today that house is worth probably $350. You know, $100,000 in difference if they did nothing.
Yep. Just lived in it?
Yep, just lived in it.
So what was it like, so housing prices, like, yes, they came down and they were crazy. The amount, like you mentioned, $170,000, you could get this nice big family home, right?
Right. In
these markets that are close to everything. So, right? So you have the amenities, you have the location, you have the home, and you get all three. Typically, you know, the triangle, we say you can have price, home, or location, right? And you need to sacrifice one. You didn't have to sacrifice anything.
Didn't have to sacrifice anything at that time.
Bottom was out, right? So housing prices were low in retrospect, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's in retrospect.
But at that time, it didn't feel that way, which is crazy. As a buyer entering into the market with no perspective, that's just what you thought it was.
It didn't feel that way, right?
Yeah.
It's like holding on to a stock.
Right.
And that stock is plummeting, right?
Yeah.
So you have these super low prices, and you have this stock that's literally just done nothing but lose you money for years. Yeah. It's just losing you piles of money.
Yeah.
And you say, let's buy more of that. How intuitive
is
that?
I mean, the people who bought in 2009, 10, 11, I mean, not even 3 years later, if they just held their assets, they were making, 20, 30%.
All right, let's get back to this. So I think I guess we can get back to this. That's kind of a little fun topic, right? Of,
Yeah.
what were showings actually like when every home that we walked into was a foreclosure or a short sale, right? So let's proceed and let's go through kind of the main big pieces that I think is valuable and interesting, right? Who got annihilated during this dip and then resurgence? Who survived? So who made it happen? Right? And they got through. They didn't hurt their families. Then who crushed it? Who prospered through this? So let's start out with the people who got annihilated. What did they do before, during, and after that just did the snowball of misery?
Well, I think it was a combination of people who got annihilated, people who trusted, unique offerings. I think it would be the way that I look at it. You look at negative amortization loans. We see it today with reverse mortgages. You look at people who had to do corporate relocation, and they didn't have a choice but to move and to lose the money at that time in their eyes. People who just were released from income, right, and didn't have any money. And then people who told us at that time, or we'll get into that one later, but those are the big three that I would say really got annihilated.
Break down the one you said, unique offerings. We're talking about bad loans, right? We're talking about negative amortization loans where you make a payment.
Or balloons.
Balloon payments where balloons were really big there. But at the end of the day, they're risky, high volatility loans. Whether it's a neg am, like where you're making your monthly payment and your mortgage is actually going up over time. So the only way that pays off is if the market continues to appreciate.
Correct.
Then balloon loans, right? So entry level, really good interest rates, and then interest rates that can just skyrocket over time. So you have a payment that you get used to. And boom.
The idea for people that did the balloon payments was to eventually be able to obtain financing before that balloon was due.
Not even that; they just keep refinancing, right? So you do
that, and people would, the goal would be to refinance
do
before
5
the
years,
balloon
you
is due.
refine at 5, and you keep doing that. But all of a sudden, that refinancing opportunity disappeared, right?
And why did it disappear? Let's talk about that. Why did it disappear for those people? Because of what?
Generally, banks, right? Banks
Regulation changed significantly in 2011. All of a sudden, it went from stated income loans, and you could get away with stuff. And that's honestly what's held the market together as the market that we're in today is held together by there being regulation over who's getting a loan, who can actually qualify for those loans, right? So that's the reason why we saw a lot of people in really bad situations with these special offerings, was because all of a sudden it went from very little regulation in that industry to a lot of regulation.
Now how can we use that? From my perspective, we need to, if you're going to be getting a loan, we need to be envisioning buying a home as buying something into a market, right? And a free market, generally free market, right? And what's unique about a free market is that prices can go up just as likely as that they can go down, right? So expecting and counting on short-term appreciation in a market so that you can continue to do the thing that will, if it doesn't happen, will sink your finances and your family. We need to be careful about that. Right? If you're going to be doing that, we better have some massive cash reserves. We better have piles of equity into this property that if the market does go down and we're expecting it to go up, we can survive that. Right? So bad loans, don't do them unless you are really prepared for both things that the market can do. Not what it will do, what you think it's going to do. It's what do you think the market could do? Are you prepared for that? Right. Okay. Relocations. You talked a little bit about this. It's a second group of people who really took a beating, and you don't really think about this, but they took a beating kind of as a residual of all the bad loans, right? So the market goes down. These relocations, they're good incomes, they're good jobs.
Generally,
Right. Generally speaking, but the market tanks, and corporate calls and says, "Hey, you're going to Alabama." But we have a house here and it's worth that. All right, I guess we just got to cut it off and move on. And we take this huge cut on our loss here so that we can have the ability to go purchase a home elsewhere, right? And we can see how tempting that is, especially being the market. If this keeps going down, I might as well just cut my losses
and go, right? And move on.
But one thing that we do know about real estate is that over time,
it always comes back.
it appreciates over time, right? So when we make short-term decisions based on, we make long-term decisions based on short-term fluctuations, we're going to get crushed. So who are the people who did well in those situations?
Well, the people who survived are the ones that, number one, took out, in an industry that was generally unregulated, they took out loans that they could actually afford in good and bad times. Even if they took out a loan that was borderline, they had enough cash reserve to be able to withstand a storm.
Specifically talking about relocations.
Yep.
What did those people do to survive?
I think that they either rented out their houses, and either they were in a position financially where they could still buy if they wanted to. And a lot of corporate relocation clients in general, they tend to do better overall financially. So they may be in a position where they could conceivably carry 2 mortgages in a worst case situation. So they rented out the current property that they're in that they can't sell because the values are not there, and they take advantage of the lower prices on their new opportunity, right? Because the one rule that I've always found is that you make your money on your purchase, right? You make or lose money on your purchase, but generally speaking, you will make money if you buy something and hold it over time. So those relocation clients in particular, those ones, they rented them out. They held it. They had somebody else pay, or they maybe minimized how much that they were losing per month if they were in a higher interest loan situation. You know, if their payment was $3,000 a month and they got a renter in there for $2,500, they paid $500 a month. Yep, they subsidized it, and then they made an adjustment on whatever it is that they purchased to account for that.
And they've tracked it, right? Because over the last 2-3 years, we started getting those phone calls.
Yeah.
You know, we started connecting with people who are in Florida and like, what's up? And they said, hey, I've got this property down here. It's ready. I'm ready to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Right. So they were patient. They held out and they waited for the market to correct.
Yeah.
In the meantime, and then they did well. It actually turned into an investment at that point.
Right. It turned into a good investment for them.
Yep.
Yep.
So they did well. So got annihilated if they acted short-term on long-term markets, right? And this is one that I think. This is kind of a quandary, and it's a tough one, but it actually goes back to what we were talking about, the loans. So the third people that they got crushed, I think, at least in my opinion, maybe Jay will have something else, is the people who lost high income earning jobs and didn't do a good job with taking out loans and building significant cash buffers, right? And I say high income as opposed to kind of a normal income, because a corporate job, you know, at a manager making $200,000-300,000 a year is not easy to recreate. So unless you have heavy equity in your property and then massive cash reserves to weather a storm like that, you know, the wheels stop turning.
Right. And I don't disagree with that at all. It's living above your means, right? Even though on paper you make $200,000 or $300,000 a year, you're like, oh crap, I made it, right? But you have expenses that are at exactly what you're making, where you're not saving anything. That becomes a serious issue.
Just because you can afford the minimum payment doesn't mean you can afford it, right?
Right.
So how we can correct from that is make sure we can afford, you know, our payments, our obligations, and then if we're in those type of brackets, making considerable, and this should span all brackets, right? This is not just high income. High income is just more difficult to replace those massive chunks, but everybody should be looking at their real estate as a piece of what they're doing. There has to be a significant chunk of savings,
right?
You know, and if we're not working towards those big buffers for things that go wrong, then it just becomes a stressor.
But I think that there is exception to that too, because you look at people, like I remember when we were buying our first and second house, really our second and third houses, you know, in our life, on paper, we didn't look great, you know, because we were in technically quote unquote commission jobs and you know, lending at that time had a lot more regulation. So, you know, even though on paper we didn't look good or we were barely within qualification, we could have afforded that
I think we have to be careful with those assumptions because we're talking about a bull market, and we have. So when you made your purchase, it's a bull market. We're talking about what we can learn long term from good and bad markets, right?
Right.
And yeah, that works, and it's worked for a lot of people, right? A lot of people put down their 3%, 3.5% in real estate, and I think that always works when we have a hold mentality, right?
Right.
If you're willing and able to hold that property,
Right.
it's going to work out for you regardless of your down payment, right?
Right.
So, and that's why I specified high income earners in this, right?
Yeah.
I specified it because the jobs that are not quick to replace,
Right.
those are the ones that have to be very, very careful, especially with those large chunks of savings. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to discourage somebody from using their low down payment programs to buy real estate. Just make sure that we have buffers, and if you are in that high income,
I just think it's important to address the people who maybe are not high income or wherever the case may be, and they start, they hear this and they think, oh, well, I don't have enough money saved up, because we get that objection a lot too, where it's like, well, I don't have 20%.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I specified high income, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it is important.
Yeah.
People who got annihilated. This is a hilarious one, right? I use it today when I get on the phone with people because I still hear it. I've been hearing it for the last 5 years. People who got annihilated, not in an immediate sense, but in a sense of lost opportunity or opportunity cost, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, prices are just too high right now.
I'm gonna wait for them to come down. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we got to be careful with these things, because let's look back to 2011, 2012, 2013. Those people all told us the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Prices are too high. They told us that last year, right?
Prices are too high.
They're coming down. The market's going to crash. No, markets don't just crash.
Yeah.
That doesn't just happen. And even if they do, nobody in any type of investment is ever going to say, yeah, it's a good idea to read the market. It's crazy. Nobody knows what the market's going to do. They don't know if it's going to go up, down, or the other thing.
Right.
Unless we have significant holes with people writing bad loans, right?
Right.
That's created. So the people who are too afraid to enter the market because they're somehow waiting for this 2020 vision in a moment of an inevitable crash that may or may not exist.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I've been telling. This is an interesting story. I had a buddy. He wanted to not really. He wasn't a buddy at the time, but 2015 he wanted a place on Minnetonka. Yeah. $1 million.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. He goes, but the prices are just too high. I think they're going to need to come down. Well, what are we at? Almost 2020.
Yeah.
He needs $1.6 million.
Yep.
To get on.
How's that working out?
It didn't work out for him.
Right.
Opportunities were there at $1 million, $1.1 million, but they were too high.
Yep.
Right? So he literally lit $600,000 on fire by trying to wait out or predict what the market was going to do.
Yep. And this is kind of preemptive, but I think we'll just keep coming back to this, right? The lessons, and then we'll just keep saying is that in any marketplace, what I've seen, greatest advice that I've chosen to adapt and to pass on to those around me is make a good purchase. Like you said, you make the money on the purchase in the market that you're in, right? So don't pay attention to if it's up, down, gonna go up, gonna go down, gonna stay flat. That does not matter in real estate. It's flat out focus on making a good purchase in the market that you're in. And we'll go back to that here as we go to what you can do to make that happen. All right, what else are we looking at? So we kind of addressed a lot of these, honestly.
Yeah.
Already, we're talking about people who survive. So good loans, of course, right?
Yeah.
Good equity up front. Good loans that are not in a negative amortization. So when you make a payment, your mortgage actually decreases. Good cash buffer is always a bonus in any type of investment, or especially in real estate. People who rented or didn't unload their properties when they had the opportunity not to, right? And I put this little piece in here. It's people who made phone calls when they're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Those who got behind and got way upside down and made the phone calls and sold their mortgages short are significantly better off today than they were if they would have waited another year and a half.
Or even just restructuring their loans or whatever the case may have been.
Right.
So.
And I wanted to say short selling as well, because a lot of people, the banks were bombarded, right? And they were just declining, restructurings, decline. And so I don't want to be speaking to people, I tried to do that. But I do want to encourage those, if you are behind, pick up the phone and make a phone call soon.
Yeah.
Because these fees don't get smaller.
No.
Right? The short
they
sale,
just keep adding onto it.
your short sale doesn't get easier
No.
to negotiate as your fees go up.
No.
Period. It just doesn't. So make a phone call if you get behind. Talk with somebody, because you might not be in as bad of shape as you think you are.
Yeah. Now, from an agent perspective, I think we talked a lot about like consumers and how they survive structured. Let's go to the agent perspective.
Yep.
How did agents do? Who got annihilated as an agent, who survived, and who prospered as an agent?
Okay. So I think the agents who got annihilated were over leveraged without a good enough cash buffer, right? So if you don't sell the house for 6 months, what are you going to do?
Right.
And then those who failed to adapt,
Yep.
who didn't make the phone calls to the banks, didn't try to secure those financing, didn't dip out of the high markets that weren't turning and get down and start helping some first-time home buyers again. I think those are the three main pieces there.
Yeah. And I think it's really easy as an agent to get into what's comfortable for you,
Yeah.
when things are good, right? So even us today, the markets have been relatively consistent over the last 5-6 years, right? So you get into this routine where it's like, if it's below this price point, I don't want to deal with it or whatever it might be, just because it becomes a little bit more of a high touch, high...
It's lower ROI, period.
high anxiety for both client and for you as an agent, right?
Yep.
And just being able to bring yourself to the situation that you're in. Right?
To be honest with you, the people who got crushed in real estate, and I think real estate agents more than anything, were those who were taking advantage of these bad loans.
Right.
And they were over leveraged.
Right.
Period. They were doing short turnarounds, right? So they were doing quick flips, short term, 90, 180 day AMs. And when the music stopped playing, the banks were not restructuring those loans for them, and they just got annihilated, right?
Yeah.
So it's that short-term mentality. This is always going to be good for me.
Right.
A lot of those have recovered and come back, though. Let's be honest. And that's what's so cool about seeing real estate in today's market, is that we see this play out over a decade.
Well, you see the people who learn from their mistakes too.
Yep.
Where they went totally bankrupt and had to start over.
And that's largely how we're restructuring our business, because we have the ability to basically read a book on what not to do, which is so cool, right? So we have these mentors coming into the business. Oh man, I got smashed. This is what happened, X, Y, and Z. My accountant says it, I told him last year at my tax planning meeting, hey, I'm starting to think about rentals. And he said, hey, I need you to be careful, because I had a lot of clients in this that over leveraged themselves, and it was devastating to them.
Yeah.
So we have these people around us that if we're willing to listen and actually listen and then do off that listening.
Right.
So that's a lot of where this comes from. Those who prospered, it's exact opposite of that, right?
Right.
They adapted.
Adjust. Yeah.
They adapted, and they sold a ton of foreclosure properties.
Gosh, there's this guy in our office. I was talking to our business manager leader for Advantage Plus, and she was telling me in 1 year he did 292 units by himself.
Yeah.
For a grand total of $50 million in real estate sales.
Right.
Like, I'm talking about 30% of what it would be today.
Yeah. Yep.
But he just adjusted.
Yep.
He
That's 40% at least, right?
30 to 50%.
Yeah, so you're doing twice
less.
as much work for the same amount of money.
Today, if he would have done that, he would have sold well over $100 million.
That's a lot of listings today, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of listings for him today.
And that's a lot of equity that his clients have in their property right now.
Exactly.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Piles of money.
Yeah. Just because
Let's say
he was
that you did
willing to
52
adjust.
million, and let's say that we take 20% over the last years. Look at that gain.
Yeah.
Look at that net gain that his clients are now enjoying.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So those are the people who just crushed it, and they also, if they had good cash reserve, they did what we teach our buyers to do. Mm-hmm. They buy in the market that they're in. They make the best purchase that they can in the market that they're in. Yeah. When they see opportunity, they're not afraid of it. I deal with a lot of people who are afraid of their own shadow. Yeah. They have the means to do things, but they just won't do it because they're afraid of what tomorrow looks like.
I was just talking to Elena, another agent on our team this morning, and she's working with a buyer right now who's saving for a good down payment, right? And I told her what's that's good and that's bad, but there's also analysis paralysis where people end up saving money into an eternity because they get so attached to what that money
looks like
and feels like in their checking account.
Right.
Right. So there's making a good purchase, but then there's actually making a purchase.
Right.
Right. You can't make a good purchase if you don't make a purchase.
Gosh, I was dealing with a client who wanted to get into investment properties. We're going to close in January, but this guy was afraid of his own shadow when we started.
Yeah.
We looked at a gajillion different opportunities. All made sense financially. They all had a way positive outcome in the short term because he wanted to rent it out, right?
Yeah.
But he was just like attached to the money.
Yeah.
And I could feel it. It was like I'm staring at an opportunity that if I want investment properties, I'm buying this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm freaking buying it.
You told me to find you a good investment.
You told me to find you one.
That does this.
Here it is.
It does this.
It does exactly what I told you it was going to do. You know what I mean? And what we talked about that you wanted, but you won't do it.
Yeah.
He was attached to the money. Yeah. And it finally got to the point where I'm probably at the 10th opportunity. And I'm like, it might not be time for you to do this.
Yeah.
Like, I can just feel it. Like, we're looking opportunities in the face, and you are just not moving. And it had nothing to do with me wanting. I didn't care. Like when he bought. Yeah. I didn't suppose what it was, but it was like I can feel that that this is an opportunity. Yeah. And you aren't going to do anything about it. So I did this. I was like, look, man, it probably isn't the time for you. Yeah. To enter into this market because this $30,000 or $40,000, it means too much to you, and until it doesn't mean that much to you, don't enter into the market for investment real estate because that's the mentality you have to have. Yep. That's what it takes.
And that's talking about heavy cash, right?
Yeah.
Is that if this cash means too much to you, you might be dancing on the edge.
Yeah.
Right. But then let's pay attention to like what the actual money means. So what did he do?
He bought the house.
Yeah.
But the reality of it was that he was attracted to what it looked like in his bank account.
Yep.
Because same guy drives a Mercedes, has all the flashy stuff that makes I'm successful, right? Yeah. But he was so attached to what the idea of being successful looked like. He was not willing to take the step to actually be successful.
Yep. Right. And that's good. Right. Advice over time is like, hey man, this is it. Let's look at this.
Right.
And when they have the ability to actually look at it with an open mind, like, oh my goodness, you're right.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah. And he actually took
in love with money.
He took that information in, and he was like, oh,
let's go.
We need to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Cool. That's cool. All right. We're running low on time here, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, and then let's wrap it up. Let's talk about what it takes to actually make a good purchase, right?
Yeah.
So when I say, man, let's not pay attention to what the market has done, what it's going to do, what it might do, what it could do, all that stuff. Let's pay attention to making a good purchase in the market that we're in right now, right? What are the things that we can look for when we're doing that?
Well,
let's not look at the investor perspective, okay? Because there's a lot of different things.
The regular consumer.
Consumer. You're putting your family here, but this is an investment too for your family, right? But we're going to exclude cash flow.
So something that my wife has said many times is, let's say the market crashes tomorrow. With that perspective, where do you want to be stuck?
Right.
Right. Is the space that you're in going to work for your family?
Today and tomorrow.
Today and tomorrow, right? I think that if the space that you're looking at purchasing will make sense for you long term, like if you have to weather a storm, do it. Be there, right? And you can afford it, right? There's two pieces to that. Is this a place that I'm okay staying in to weather a negative situation? And can I afford it in that same negative situation? Right?
So preparing for what could happen.
Right.
Will this work for my family? Will it work into the future? Can I afford it?
Right.
Can I afford it in a bad market?
Right.
Yes. Okay. So we've found that house. Now, what other factors can we look into? And these are some a little bit higher level things, I think. It's not that high. I guess it isn't, but it's really counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy to jump into a marketplace and to try to find a house that you can go one-on-one with the seller with.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, there's multiple offers again. I'll find something else.
Right.
I don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But what is multiple offers telling you about that home? So if you get into a house and you have 9 families who all have gone through this home, saw it, talked about it, went, whoa, this is the house that I want to put my family into.
Right.
9 people do that. What does it tell you about that house?
Tells you that it's saleable.
That's a resaleable house. That's
Right.
something that people want
To be in.
to be in.
Right.
The market is directly telling you the market wants this house
Right.
at or close to this price.
Or above it.
Yeah.
9 people, it's above.
It's above, right?
They'll spend more on that house than what
Yep.
it's listed at because
Yep.
it's that good of an
Yep.
opportunity.
So we have 2 houses in a marketplace. One of them has no offers.
Right.
The other one has 9 offers.
Right.
They're in the same areas,
Right.
same budget. These buyers over here that all want this house,
They don't want that one.
they have definitely seen this house.
And don't want it.
And they said, oh, I want this house instead.
Right.
Which one should we be going after? The one that makes us feel good because we're getting like this weird deal and negotiating with the seller? Or should we go after the one that the market's saying, hey, you buy that one because people want it?
Right. Or depends on your thought process as a consumer. What are you going to do with that house once you buy it?
This one?
Yeah, this one right here.
What's wrong with it? Are you willing and
Are
able to?
you willing and able to make the changes necessary to make it this one?
Right.
Over here.
And does that even make sense?
Right.
So if it costs 50 to make it this one,
Right.
does that even make sense?
Right. Doesn't make financial sense.
So do we have extra cash? Do we have the ability? No, you can't work in to your 0 or 3% down mortgage, refinance, or rebuilding construction costs. You can't do that.
You got to have the cash.
You have to have the cash. Okay, so
just
with
do
that
it.
in mind, which one are you going after?
Right.
Right. We have cash, we're willing, able, and ready to do that, or we're going after something we just want to move into with good equity.
Right.
So, juggle that.
Right.
Buy good-looking homes. That's huge.
Yeah. Your exterior will make or break you. I had this $1 million property, and I kid you not, the inside was $1 million property.
Mm-hmm.
The outside was my 4-year-old's drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was not pretty.
It's an ugly home.
It was just an ugly, ugly house. It needed $50,000 on the outside
Yeah.
to make it nice. It needed a new siding. It needed a facelift.
So buy good-looking homes.
Yeah.
Period. People buy good-looking homes. Don't buy the ugly home because
It
it's
took
fun.
me forever to sell it.
Yep.
Like, absolutely.
Yeah, and it
forever.
cost you lots, and it cost them lots of money.
Yeah.
Period.
Had we just spent the money up front, or you bought the house that was better looking,
Yep.
it would have sold.
3, think about your family needs, but then also constantly, and I always keep bringing this up to my buyers.
Oh, yeah.
Too much, right? Think about your future buyer.
Yeah.
Who are you selling this home to?
In the future.
Right.
Yes. I go
What are
on
they
listing
gonna want?
appointments talking about that.
Yeah.
Like, who are we selling this thing to?
Right? It's the first thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
This is going to be an investment. You want it to appreciate over time and to be attractive in the market that you eventually sell it into. So constantly thinking about, if you can deal with no garage, that's great, right? You are 1 in 20, right? You do not want to resell a house
Yeah.
with a 1 in 20 feature.
Right.
Okay, so pay attention to that.
Yeah, or when you go into it, you better plan on putting something up.
You better put a garage up.
Yeah, or
That's
just
expensive.
know that it's possible if you can't do it now.
Yeah.
Be able to know that it's possible in the future for when you
Yeah.
do go to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start with good equity, so big chunks of cash down payment, or
In a
like
perfect
Jay,
world.
or like Jay was saying, like, so these are not. It's one or the other, right? Either have the chunk of equity that you can weather the storm, or be ready to stay for a long period of time.
Right. Or if you just are in that situation where you want to put less money down to make repairs because you have the cash,
Yep.
that's another situation in and of itself, right?
So you're building equity there.
Yeah, but
I
you
mean,
have
that's
the
the same
equity.
thing.
Yeah,
I'd say either build good equity, whether that's low down payment and then making changes to build it,
yeah,
or be prepared, ready, willing, and able to stay for a long period of time if the market happens to
correct.
correct, slightly.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I think that's it. We can talk about Minnesota a little bit. Minnesota is a booming market. I keep telling people this. What do you think things are going to do? It's going to keep pushing out from the core.
Yeah.
Right. So we have Minneapolis, St. Paul. We have this beltway of interstates around it, and pricing is just expanding as we go around it.
Correct.
Right. And that's largely pushed by huge corporate presence. Right.
Yeah.
And they're not bad corporations, right? A big winner right now in restructuring is Target. Like,
Right.
holy buckets,
Yeah.
impressive, right? They're
Yeah.
not going anywhere.
They're creating needs that we didn't even know we had.
Amazon's coming
Yeah.
into town.
Yeah.
Tons of jobs down in Shakopee. We've seen
Yeah.
Amazon trucks all over the place. We got 3M long-term staple,
Yeah.
right? We've got all this booming corporate business that's going to continue to push prices up.
Well, especially in the surrounding areas, because a lot of those people that work for those big corporations, they're relatively centrally located in the inner city. That's going to push pricing in the immediate areas significantly higher. Now, the suburbs, as we get out to the suburbs, they don't feel that at nearly the pace or rate that the inner city does, but you will feel a trickle in those suburban markets as well because of that.
Home buyers looking to get pricing in the type of home they want, like as they go up. And two, this is important too, is that businesses, right, are going to start to populate those areas. We've seen it more and more and more because one, it's more cost effective. Two, tons of consumers are moving out to the suburbs. So we're going to continue to see this expansion.
And we're seeing that a lot because of the work from home. That a lot of these corporations are offering the options to not always be in the office, 5 days a week.
Right. So what can you do with that effectively in Minnesota, specifically in the Minneapolis-St. Paul surrounding area? I think my perspective is to buy around good amenities and then buy into communities, school districts that are very likely to be expanded into. Right. So how is the city planning on expanding into the future?
Future predictions, I expect 2020 to be, if you're a listing agent, from the agent perspective, you should have a relatively good year. Buyers are going to be out there. I think my personal prediction is the upper bracket is going to move quite a bit this year.
You think so?
I do. I think you're going to see a lot more higher price.
What do you mean upper bracket?
I'm talking about anywhere between $800 and $3 million. I think you're going to see a lot more of those houses on the market this year than you have in years past.
More inventory.
More inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's going to slow down. I think pricing is going to hit a stop there. But I think you got to be careful between 800 and 3 million. Those are two hugely different markets.
Specifically, I think the hyper like central upper end market, I would say between 800 to $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Really is going to be the market where you see a little bit more inventory than you have in the past. And a lot of it's due to new construction. That's kind of the landing place for new construction. And you're seeing a lot of builders getting up houses right now. And
in that $1 million to $1.3 million range.
In that price range.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see a little bit heavier inventory in that price range.
I think $1.5 million plus, they just continue to do the same thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some movement. It's never going to be a huge shaker.
It depends, but yeah.
Okay. As for first-time home buyers, get out there.
It's going to be a good year for first-time home buyers. I think they're going to actually have some opportunities this year.
We're doing some deals right now in the fall and the winter time. Man, if you can stomach it, do it right now when other people don't want to, because we're getting some deals. Yeah.
And the mid-level price range is heavier in inventory than I've seen it. And mid-level, I mean from $300 to $550. That area in particular has got some good inventory.
That's the market that's going to be turning hard.
Yeah.
Cool. That's what we got today, man.
That's it, man. Real talk, real producers.
Let's go. We'll see you next week.